Welcome to The Critique. Today we are reviewing a commentary video analyzing recent allegations against beauty influencer James Charles, specifically focusing on a viral Billboard campaign and the resurfaced testimony of Rhett regarding inappropriate interactions. Let's get right into the feedback.
Yeah, let's dive in. The material effectively gathers evidence, but relies on a reactive, free-flow structure that dilutes the gravity of the specific allegations.
It really does. I mean, the creator clearly did the research, but the narrative just jumps erratically between current events, like that Billboard, and general industry complaints, like Michaela's wedding, and then back to the core evidence of Ethan's story.
It feels a bit like we're watching someone browse their open browser tabs in real time.
Exactly. The weakness is this scattershot approach. It forces the audience to work way too hard to connect that initial silence is violence theme to the actual evidence of predatory behavior.
Right. And the presenter frequently interrupts the flow with meta-commentary about the video's format itself.
Oh yeah, saying things like, I wasn't gonna do a video, or this is unscripted, or sorry to cut there. It just completely breaks the immersion.
It does. And if you focus solely on that live reaction feel, you risk overlooking the need for a cohesive, almost legal argument.
So the suggestion here is to reorganize the content into a case file structure rather than a stream of consciousness reaction.
A case file structure. I like that.
Yeah, you need to establish the current hook, the Billboard, briefly, but pivot immediately to a linear timeline of the specific allegation. Go right into Ethan's story before zooming out to the broader industry commentary.
So you hook them with the news, but then take them straight back to the start of the actual timeline.
Right. For a concrete example, look at how the Billboard is handled right now. It's treated as just a standalone viral moment. What you should do is start with the silence is violence thesis and present that Billboard as the symptom of the public's unrest.
The physical manifestation of the internet's memory, basically.
Exactly. And then you introduce Rhett not just as, another victim mentioned in passing, but as the central case study that explains why that Billboard exists in the first place.
That makes total sense. And what about that whole section on Michaela and the other influencers? Because that felt like a massive detour right in the middle of the evidence.
It was a huge detour. So the actionable fix there is to move that entire segment about the industry normalizing this behavior to the very end.
Right. Use it as the closing argument.
Yes. Use it to explain why the cycle repeats. If you drop it in the middle, you're interrupting the actual evidence presentation. But if you put it at the end, it becomes this societal indictment that leaves the viewer thinking about the bigger picture.
It transforms the piece from just a rant into a real documentary-style investigation.
Exactly, which actually brings us perfectly to the second main issue. The speaker's authoritative stance is repeatedly undermined by apologetic, self-referential language and insecurity regarding the format.
I definitely noticed that there were so many instances of, I know I beg for likes, or a sorry for rambling.
Yeah, it pushes the audience away. The weakness is this recurring pattern of apologizing for the content's very existence.
Right. Phrases like, I hope that's the wrong screen, or I'm just going to wrap things up there.
It suggests to the listener that the video is low effort or potentially untrustworthy before they've even had a chance to fully assess the argument.
It's almost like defensive posturing, like they're trying to lower expectations so they can't be criticized if the video isn't perfect.
But it just invites more criticism because it sounds unprofessional. If you don't take your own investigation seriously, why should the audience?
Exactly.
So the suggestion is to adopt an investigative journalist persona rather than a casual chatter persona. Even if the content is completely unscripted, you have to remove those fourth wall breaks that only serve to highlight your production flaws or insecurities.
That's a great point. But how do we reframe that? Because every creator needs engagement, right? They have to ask for subscribers.
You integrate the call to action into the moral mission of the video. Let me give you a concrete example. Currently, the speaker says, "Sit back and relax. I know I beg for it. I've got no shame. Could you please do me a lovely favor?"
Yeah, that sounds desperate.
It sounds like begging. The actionable fix is to frame it as necessary for the truth. You say something like, "This story is being suppressed by the algorithm and ignored by mainstream media. Subscribing helps force this conversation into the spotlight."
Oh, wow, that is so much stronger.
Right?
It makes the viewer feel like they're an ally in a cause, rather than just doing a favor for a creator.
Exactly. And we see a similar issue with the emotional aspects of the delivery. The speaker actually apologizes for getting emotional or having a raspy voice when discussing the justice system.
Yeah, I remember he literally said, "Please don't judge me if I get emotional."
The fix for that is simple. Frame the emotion as righteous indignation, don't ask for permission to feel. Instead of saying, sorry if I get emotional, you say, the reality of this justice system failure is infuriating, and here is why.
That's a huge shift. It turns emotional instability into a strength, passion for justice.
It changes the listener's reaction from pity to shared anger, which is exactly what you want for a topic like this.
Definitely. Let's move to the third point, which gets into the substance of the argument itself. The section critiquing the justice system and wealth disparity is powerful, but lacks specific connective tissue to the subject's manipulation tactics.
Yes, that rant about the U.S. justice system and rich people getting cheat codes was quite long.
It was. And the weakness there is that the rant feels broad and disconnected from the specific evidence provided in the emails. It risks sounding like a generalization, just a standard complaint about society, rather than the specific indictment of how James Charles allegedly utilized his resources to silence an accuser.
Because the argument here is that James specifically used his wealth to maneuver out of trouble. When you just do a general rant, it dilutes that specific accusation.
Exactly. So the suggestion is to anchor the systemic critique directly to the provided email evidence to show the mechanics of the power imbalance rather than just stating that it exists.
Use the lens of power dynamics to analyze the settlement offer specifically.
Right. So instead of just saying the system is broken, we need to show how it was broken in this specific instance.
Exactly. Here's a concrete example of how to fix it. Right now, the speaker goes on a massive tangent about how the police let people down and how America prioritizes the wealthy, and then only eventually gets around to reading the lawyer's email.
The emails almost felt like an afterthought to the rant.
They did. So the actionable fix is to invert that structure. Read the email where the lawyer mentions the detective playing phone tag and the offer of a settlement. Then use that specific evidence to launch the argument.
So you lead with the hard proof.
Yes. You say, this email proves that justice was for sale. The system didn't just fail passively. It was actively maneuvered by a wealthy party offering a payout for silence.
That is so much more compelling. Ground the philosophy in the actual facts of the case.
And we can apply that exact same logic to the Pilates point.
Oh, the video of James doing Pilates while all these allegations were swirling around online?
Yeah, the actionable fix there is to contrast the Pilates video, which represents James's current luxury and unbothered state, directly with Ethan's description of shutting down and ghosting his lawyers due to trauma.
That juxtaposes the actual consequence of the wealth gap.
Exactly. It shows one person doing Pilates while the other is paralyzed by trauma. It elevates the point from just rich versus poor to impunity versus suffering.
That's a really vivid image. It drives the so what home perfectly. But that actually leads right into our final area of critique. If the evidence is visual, like those emails or the Pilates video, we run into a major issue for audio listeners.
We really do.
The presentation relies too heavily on visual receipts without sufficient descriptive narration, alienating audio-only listeners or those not pausing to read text.
Yeah, phrases like, as you can see here and look at this clip, popped up constantly.
The weakness is that those phrases require the audience to be visually glued to the screen. The shirtless FaceTime and the Google Drive contents are alluded to, but they aren't vividly described. It completely lessens their emotional impact for anyone who isn't squinting at their phone.
Right. If you don't describe what we're looking at, the horror of it remains completely abstract.
So the suggestion is to utilize audio description techniques to narrate the evidence before you actually analyze it. You have to quote the text on the screen verbatim when it's crucial to your argument.
Let's look at the Snapchat video example for a concrete way to apply this. The one with the 4 years comment.
Yeah. Currently, the speaker just shows the Snapchat video and says, what he's implying on that 4 years is 4 more years until I'm 18.
Which completely assumes the viewer heard the video clearly, saw the facial expression, and understood the content.
Exactly. The actionable fix is to describe the visual first. You need to say, in the video, James is zooming in on his face, smirking, and explicitly says the phrase 4 years. Ethan clarifies this was a countdown to his 18th birthday.
That paints the picture immediately. And what about the FaceTime call? Because that felt like a huge missed opportunity for impact.
It really was. Right now, the speaker just references the call where James is shirtless by saying, just look at this clip. Notice that the shirt is off.
That's way too casual for such a serious allegation.
It is. The actionable fix is to set the scene. To establish the impropriety, you say, we see a split screen. On one side, a 14-year-old boy. On the other, a 20-year-old CEO, shirtless,
lying in bed with his toes visible, treating a business inquiry like a casual, intimate hangout.
Wow.
Right? And then you add, this visual context destroys the business meeting defense immediately.
That is incredibly visceral. It forces the listener to visualize the power dynamic instantly. You're turning a simple clip into a fully realized scene.
Exactly. It strengthens the argument by making sure the evidence is inescapable, regardless of whether the audience is watching the video or just listening to the audio while driving.
These are really significant shifts we're talking about. Restructuring the timeline, changing the persona from defensive to authoritative, anchoring the broad philosophy in hard evidence, and narrating the visual. It's a lot of work.
It is work, but it's the difference between a casual rant and a hard-hitting investigation.
But I wonder, if they strip away all that personality, the rambling, the apologies, do they lose the authenticity that YouTube audiences usually crave?
That's a valid concern. But when the subject matter is this serious, allegations of predation and systemic failure, authenticity shouldn't look like incompetence.
Right.
Authenticity should look like passion and thoroughness. You can absolutely be authentic without being disorganized.
That makes total sense. The authenticity comes from that righteous indignation we discussed earlier, rather than the oops, wrong screen moment.
Precisely. The raw materials are all here in this piece. The emails, the videos, the passion, but the assembly just needs to be much tighter.
You've hit the nail on the head. So let's just quickly recap the main points of the critique for our listeners.
Go for it.
First, narrative structure. Move from a stream of consciousness reaction to a structured case file. Start with the hook, move linearly through the victim's timeline, and save the industry gossip for the conclusion.
Second, tone. Drop the casual chatter persona and the apology. Become the investigative journalist. Frame your request for engagement as part of the moral mission, not just a personal favor.
Third, the so what. Anchor your systemic critiques of the justice system directly to the specific emails and evidence you're showing. Don't just tell us the system is broken. Show us the exact email that broke.
And finally, audio-visual integration. Narrate your receipts. Describe the scene of the FaceTime call and the expression in the Snapchat video. Make the evidence vivid for absolutely everyone, even if they're only listening.
It's all about respecting the gravity of the story you're telling. This isn't just internet drama. It's a serious allegation, and the production value should reflect that seriousness.
I can clearly see what the creator was going for with this original submission, and I genuinely believe that with these edits, this piece could be a definitive resource on the topic rather than just another reaction video.
We really encourage you to take this feedback, refine your editing process to match the seriousness of your investigative work, and submit the next iteration. We would love to see how this evolves.
Absolutely. Good luck with the edit.
That does it for this critique. Keep challenging yourself to be better. We'll see you next time.